Professor Maya Lin massaged her temples as the arrivals terminal at Earth International Spaceport descended into chaos. Several towering indigo-skinned aliens had managed to overturn a baggage cart, sending what looked like metallic exercise equipment clattering across the polished floor. Other travelers gave them a wide berth while security personnel exchanged uncertain glances. "I offer profound apologies, small human professor." The largest of the aliens bounded toward her, with surprising grace despite his massive frame. His cranial ridge, resembling a transparent fan of delicate tissue, vibrated with excitement. "Krell was attempting to demonstrate your planet's gravitational variances using luggage dynamics." "That's not actually a scientific concept," Maya responded, trying to mask her frustration. "And please remember what we discussed about indoor volume levels." Krell's cranial ridge drooped noticeably. "Yes, humans possess sensitive hearing structures and startle with minimal provocation." He turned to his companions and made an exaggerated gesture of lowering his volume. "Brothers, we must shield these delicate beings with vocal restraint." The other four Zenth immediately began stage whispering so loudly that nearby humans winced visibly. This cultural exchange program would certainly test her patience. As a professor of sinolinguistics at Global University, Maya had volunteered expecting to host scholars or diplomats. Instead, she'd been assigned this quintet of what essentially amounted to extraterrestrial fraternity brothers from the frozen moon Eldara. Their species, the Zenth, had only recently joined the Planetary Alliance, and these five were supposedly among their most intellectually promising young adults, a thought Maya found increasingly concerning. Professor Maya, the one called Nex, approached cautiously, stepping around the scattered exercise equipment. "My atmospheric analyzer indicates altered gas composition compared to the embassy. Is this correctly calibrated?" He thrust a blinking device toward her face. At least one of them seemed scientifically inclined. "The embassy likely has atmospheric adjustments for various species. This is Earth's natural atmosphere." Nex's eyes widened, their vertical pupils dilating with interest. "Remarkable. I shall document this variation for my research database." He began typing rapidly on a wrist device using his web digits. "If you're quite finished creating havoc," Maya said, "our transport to the mountain region leaves shortly." Mountains, pronounced Jex, the most food-obsessed of the group according to their profiles. "Is this where the ancient warriors train in ritual combat techniques?" "No," Maya sighed. "That's not. I have prepared extensively for ceremonial battles with these warriors," announced Velk, the shortest of the aliens, though still towering over Maya. He struck what he clearly believed was a martial arts stance, but looked more like an awkward bird. "Their legendary protective garments will prove inadequate against my superior reach." Maya pinched the bridge of her nose. Their application had mentioned interest in traditional mountain culture, but she hadn't realized they genuinely expected to engage in combat with warriors. "Those warriors haven't existed for centuries. We're visiting the mountain region for its natural beauty, historical landmarks, and thermal springs." Thermal springs. The fifth alien dwarf spoke for the first time, his voice surprisingly gentle compared to his massive frame. "Water that emerges from below ground at elevated temperatures." "Exactly." Maya nodded, relieved that at least one concept wouldn't require elaborate explanation. "Our region sits on a geologically active zone, so we have many natural hot springs. They're used for relaxation and have health benefits." The five Zenth exchanged glances she couldn't interpret, their cranial ridges shifting positions in what appeared to be a form of silent communication. "Most intriguing," Krell finally said, his tone oddly formal. "We shall observe this phenomenon with appropriate scientific detachment." Something about their reaction struck Maya as unusual, but she had no time to pursue it as the final boarding announcement for their transport echoed through the terminal. "Let's proceed," she said, gesturing toward the platform. "And please try not to damage anything else." The magnetic train cut through the winter landscape, a silver streak against the backdrop of snow-covered mountains. Inside, Maya attempted to brief her charges on local etiquette, while they pressed their faces against the windows, fogging the glass with their higher body temperature. "The lodge where we're staying is centuries old," she explained. "That means absolutely no roughhousing, no impromptu strength competitions, and please remember to remove your footwear before stepping on the traditional floor mats." "Centuries is considered significant?" Jex asked, momentarily distracted from the scenery. "Our learning halls on Eldara were carved from glacial ice during the early expansion era, thousands of your Earth years ago." "Well, for human construction, centuries are significant," Maya replied, "especially considering the seismic activity in the region." "Ah," Krell exclaimed, clearly delighted to showcase his supposed knowledge. "The towering mountain peak, the dormant spacecraft disguised as a volcanic formation. I have already researched this extensively." Maya stared at him. "The mountain is not a spacecraft of any kind." "Of course," Nex winked dramatically. "We respect your planetary classified information. It's geology, not a classified." Maya stopped herself. "Let's focus on proper thermal spring etiquette. You must thoroughly cleanse yourselves before entering the hot spring baths." Another strange look passed between the aliens. "What is their temperature range?" Dorv asked carefully. "Usually between 40 to 43 degrees Celsius," Maya answered. "Some are slightly cooler, while others can be quite hot." All 5 aliens went still, their cranial ridges flattening against their heads. "Is there a problem?" Maya asked. "No problem whatsoever," Krell declared with obvious false cheer. "We are merely processing this fascinating cultural information." Maya made a mental note to research Zenth temperature tolerance when she had a moment. Their reactions suggested something beyond mere cultural difference. The remainder of the journey passed with her attempting to explain eating utensil usage to beings with 3 webbed fingers on each hand, while they countered with increasingly improbable facts about the mountain region they had somehow acquired. By the time they arrived at their destination, Maya had dispelled myths about ninja-operated vending machines, underwater farming conducted on mechanical stilts, and the belief that a cartoon character was the region's head of state. The traditional lodge stood nestled among snow-dusted pines, steam rising from the outdoor baths visible beyond the wooden structure. As they approached, Maya felt a momentary pang of anxiety. The owner, Master Hirota, was notoriously traditional and had only reluctantly agreed to host non-human guests. The sliding door opened to reveal an elderly man in simple traditional clothing. His deeply lined face betrayed not a flicker of surprise at the 5 enormous indigo aliens clustered at his entrance. "Welcome to Yumegawa Lodge," he said with a formal bow. "We are honored to host representatives from Eldara." The Zenth, clearly having rehearsed this moment, attempted to return the bow. Their much larger frames made the gesture awkward, and Velk nearly toppled forward onto the elderly innkeeper before Dorv caught him by his ceremonial sash. "We bring gratitude from our ancestral home," Krell announced, his voice mercifully lower than usual. He presented Master Hirota with a crystalline object that seemed to glow from within. "This is preserved luminescence from our sacred caverns, a token of Zenth respect." Master Hirota accepted the gift with perfect composure. "You honor my humble establishment. Please enter and make yourselves comfortable." As they removed their enormous footwear, a process that took considerable time due to the complex fastening systems, Maya noticed Master Hirota giving her a subtle nod of approval. Perhaps the cultural exchange wouldn't be a complete disaster after all. That thought evaporated moments later when she heard a tearing sound followed by Jex's distressed voice. "The wall partition has become separated from its supporting structure." I applied minimal pressure. Maya closed her eyes and counted silently to calm herself. Dinner was served in a private dining room with reinforced floor cushions specially prepared for the Zenth. Maya watched with trepidation as elaborate traditional cuisine was presented on delicate ceramic dishware. "Before we begin," she said quickly, "remember that each dish is arranged as a form of artistic expression. Please observe it before eating." The Zenth stared at the beautiful arrangements of seasonal ingredients with expressions ranging from confusion to suspicion. "Food is art?" Dorv asked, peering at a perfectly grilled fish presented with winter blossoms. In a sense, Maya explained, the presentation is part of the experience. The chef considers color, texture, seasonality, and balance in each dish. Jex leaned dangerously close to his food, his nostrils flaring. On Eldara, we consume nutrition paste calibrated for optimal physical performance. Appearance is irrelevant. Well, here it's very relevant, Maya replied. So please don't just shove it all into your mouths at once. 5 pairs of eyes blinked at her simultaneously. How else would one consume sustenance? Nex asked with genuine confusion. What followed was a chaotic introduction to Earth dining. Despite their webbed fingers, the Zenth made valiant attempts to use the traditional utensils, resulting in several pieces of food becoming airborne projectiles. Jex discovered spicy condiment by consuming an entire bowl of it in one bite, which led to him running in panicked circles around the room while making high-pitched whistling noises through his gill slits. Yet amid the chaos, something unexpected happened. The aliens began to approach the meal with increasing wonder, taking time to smell, observe, and savor each bite. Dorv became entranced by the delicate sweetness of a traditional egg dish, while Velk developed an immediate affinity for fermented bean soup, requesting several additional bowls. These flavors contain memories, Krell announced suddenly, his usual boisterousness subdued. I taste the ocean, the mountains, the changing of seasons. Your species has elevated nourishment to a form of communion with your environment. Maya found herself speechless. It was perhaps the most insightful observation she'd heard from any of them. As the meal concluded, she mentioned their plans for the following morning. After breakfast, we'll experience one of our region's most cherished traditions, the thermal springs. The sudden tension around the table was palpable. The Zent's cranial ridges flattened simultaneously. You mentioned these heated water pools? Nex asked, his scientific curiosity seemingly at war with some deeper concern. Yes, Maya confirmed. The lodge is famous for its mineral-rich hot springs. They're very relaxing. Relaxing, repeated Krell. The word sounded foreign in his mouth. Yes, the heated pools of human relaxation. We've heard of these. They're not boiling, Maya corrected. They're hot but comfortable. Of course, Velk said, his voice unnaturally high. Comfortable heat that humans immerse in for pleasure. The strange reactions continued as they discussed the bathing process, with the aliens growing increasingly subdued. When they finally retired to their rooms, 2 connecting chambers specifically prepared with reinforced flooring, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that something significant had been left unsaid. Unable to sleep, Maya decided to check on her charges. As she approached their rooms, she heard muffled voices speaking in their native language, a series of clicks, trills, and deep resonant tones. Her universal translator picked up fragments as she drew closer. Cannot believe they willingly immerse. Higher temperature tolerance is known, but actual immersion in. Considered execution by heating on Eldara. Maya froze. Execution by heating. She pressed closer to the paper door, her translator working to process their rapid speech. We must honor their customs, came Krell's distinctive voice. If the humans can endure this trial, we must show equal courage. But protested what she assumed was Velk. Water above certain temperatures causes severe physiological distress in our species. They're talking about temperatures that would be lethal to us, Maya realized with shock. Perhaps human skin has protective properties, suggested Nex. Or maybe this is how they evaluate the worthiness of galactic visitors. I have prepared my death poem, Velk declared solemnly. Would you like to hear it? Maya had heard enough. She slid the door open to find all 5 Zenth seated in a circle, what appeared to be personal tokens arranged between them. They startled at her entrance, ridges rising in alarm. Professor Maya, Krell exclaimed. We were merely discussing tomorrow's cultural experience. You think the thermal springs will kill you, she said flatly. The aliens exchanged guilty glances. Not kill, Nex clarified. merely cause extreme pain, possible neurological damage, and potential cardiac failure, and thus kill. Why didn't you say something? Maya asked, entering the room and sliding the door closed behind her. We did not wish to appear weak, Dorv admitted. Humans are renowned for their endurance of extreme conditions. We wanted to properly partake of your culture. Wait, Maya said, realization dawning. Do you think hot springs are some kind of endurance test? Is it not? Asked Dorv. On our world, water above certain temperatures is used only for the most severe criminal punishments. The concept of willingly entering such temperatures for enjoyment is incomprehensible. Maya sat down with them, understanding suddenly dawning. I am sorry. This is my fault. I should have researched this before, but yes, hot springs aren't painful for humans. Our bodies have different temperature tolerances than yours, it seems. What feels pleasantly warm to us might be dangerous for your species. But the water truly is heated. Jex asked. This is not metaphorical language. It's really heated, Maya confirmed. But it's not boiling, and it doesn't harm us. In fact, it's therapeutic. The minerals in the water can help with various health conditions, and the heat relaxes our muscles. Fascinating, Nex murmured, already typing notes. Human biochemistry must process heat through entirely different pathways than Zenth physiology. You don't have to participate in the thermal springs, Maya assured them. We can find other activities. No, Krell interjected. We came to experience human culture in its authentic form. We will observe this practice even if direct participation might be challenging for our biology. Maya studied them with new appreciation. Despite their boisterous and often chaotic behavior, there was an earnest desire to understand humanity that she hadn't fully recognized until now. Get some rest, she suggested, rising to leave. Tomorrow we'll figure out an approach that works for everyone. As she slid the door close, she heard Velk ask plaintively, Does anyone still want to hear my death poem? I worked very hard on the metaphors. Morning arrived with fresh snowfall blanketing the grounds of the lodge. Maya found the Zenth already awake, engaged in what appeared to be ritualistic preparations. Nex was scanning each of his companions with various devices, while Dorv applied some kind of protective gel to his skin. Velk was practicing controlled breathing exercises, and Jex seemed to be consuming emergency rations from their home world. Krell sat cross-legged in meditation, occasionally emitting deep humming tones. Good morning, Maya greeted them. I've been thinking about our discussion last night. I spoke with Master Hirota, and there's a less hot spring that's used primarily for therapeutic purposes. The temperature is lower. Would you be willing to test it, perhaps just a toe? The Zenth exchanged glances, their ridges rippling in silent communication. We have prepared ourselves for the full human experience, Dorv declared, standing to his full height. Nex has applied a thermal-resistant coating to our outer layers, and we have each written messages to our families in case of misfortune. Maya suppressed a smile. I appreciate your bravery, but I think we can approach this more scientifically. Let's start with observation. She led them through the lodge to the outdoor bathing area. The morning air was crisp, creating dramatic plumes of steam rising from the various pools nestled among snow-covered rocks and winter bare trees. Several human guests were already soaking, their expressions serene as snow fell gently around them. The Zenth stood transfixed at the sight. They show no signs of distress, whispered Nex, surreptitiously scanning a nearby elderly man with his device. Vital signs indicate relaxation rather than physiological stress. As I mentioned, Maya said, for humans, this is pleasant. Now, would one of you like to test the cooler pool? After much deliberation and several rounds of what appeared to be their equivalent of rock, paper, scissors, involving complex ridge positions, Dorv was selected as the test subject. The others gathered around him in a protective formation as he approached the edge of the therapeutic pool. Your courage honors our ancestors, Krell intoned solemnly. Should your nervous system fail, we will preserve your memories in the glacial archives. promised Jex. "Perhaps just your hand first," Maya suggested gently. Nex nodded, his expression one of grim determination. With excruciating slowness, he extended one webbed hand toward the steaming water. The other Xanth leaned forward in anticipation, ridges fully extended in what Maya now recognized as their expression of extreme stress. Dorv's fingertips touched the water. He yanked his hand back immediately, staring at it in disbelief. Then, cautiously, he extended it again, this time allowing his fingers to submerge. "It is warm," he said, sounding astonished, but not painful. "Is your neural function still operational?" Nex demanded, scanning Dorv's arm. "Completely," Dorv confirmed, now dipping his entire hand into the water. "It feels unusual but not unpleasant." Encouraged by this success, the other Xanth took turns testing the water. Their initial trepidation gave way to fascination as they discovered that while the temperature was higher than they would normally tolerate, it didn't cause the pain or damage they had feared. The mineral content must be interacting with our skin chemistry differently than the water on our home world, Nex hypothesized. Now kneeling by the pool with various testing implements, the sulfur compounds particularly seemed to create a buffering effect. An elderly man soaking in the pool regarded them with amused interest. "First time in a thermal spring?" he asked in accented English. "These are the first of their species to experience our hot springs," Maya explained. "Ah." The old man nodded sagely. "My grandfather built this lodge's first bath after discovering the spring had healing properties for his joint ailments." Nex's ridge perked up at this. "You deliberately channeled potentially hazardous thermal water for health purposes." "Of course," the old man replied. "That is what humans do. We turn challenges into benefits." The revelation seemed to profoundly impact the Xanth. They gathered at the pool's edge, engaged in deep discussion that even Maya's translator struggled to fully capture. Terms like adaptive utilization and thermal reconfiguration featured prominently. Eventually, Krell made a decisive gesture and began removing his outer garments. "We will attempt partial immersion," he announced to Maya. Nex believes this unique mineral composition provides unexpected benefits to our dermis layers. One by one, the Xanth followed the proper washing protocol Maya had taught them, then carefully entered the therapeutic pool, stopping at knee depth. Their expressions cycled through discomfort, surprise, and finally something approaching wonder. "The heat penetrates differently than on Eldara," Dorv observed quietly. "There, it attacks. Here, it embraces. I feel my circulation pattern shifting," Jex added, studying the submerged portion of his legs. "The blood vessels are dilating rather than constricting in panic." Velk, who had been the most fearful, slowly sat down until the water reached his waist. His ridge, usually in constant motion, fell into a peaceful droop. "I understand now, human teacher," he murmured. "It is like being suspended between states of being." The elderly man nodded approvingly. "You learn quickly for visitors." Maya watched as their boisterous personalities were momentarily subdued by genuine contemplation. It was, she realized, exactly the kind of cultural exchange she had hoped for. Over the next several days, the Xanth became increasingly fascinated with thermal spring culture. What began as cautious experimentation evolved into methodical research as they visited different hot springs throughout the region, each with unique mineral compositions. Nex led the scientific inquiry, meticulously documenting the effects of various waters on Xanth physiology. He discovered that certain mineral combinations actually enhanced their natural regenerative abilities, while others improved their thermal regulation, a significant benefit for a species evolved for cold environments. "The iron content in this spring increases oxygen transport efficiency in our bloodstream," he announced after one particularly enthusiastic testing session. "It could revolutionize Xanth medicine for those suffering from deep ice expedition sickness." Meanwhile, Krell and Dorv became interested in the cultural aspects of hot spring bathing. They engaged elderly locals in long conversations about traditional beliefs surrounding the healing properties of different waters. Their sincere interest and respectful questions won over many initially wary residents. Jex, true to his nature, focused on the culinary traditions associated with thermal springs, learning about hot spring-boiled eggs and vegetables steamed using natural thermal vents. He began experimenting with combining earth ingredients with Zenth dietary supplements, creating bizarre but enthusiastic fusion cuisine that the lodge staff accepted with impressive politeness. Even Velk overcame his initial fear, becoming particularly fond of a small private bath nestled among snow-dusted bamboo. He spent hours there composing what he called water poetry, rhythmic compositions that attempted to capture the sensory experience of hot spring bathing for his people back home. The locals, initially startled by the towering indigo visitors, gradually warmed to them. The Zenth's genuine appreciation of local traditions and their childlike wonder at new experiences proved endearing. Children especially were drawn to them, fascinated by their color-changing ridges and webbed hands. Maya found herself enjoying their company far more than she had anticipated. Their perspective allowed her to see aspects of her own culture with fresh eyes, and their unabashed enthusiasm was contagious. When Master Hirota mentioned extending their stay, she found herself readily agreeing. "They are unusual guests," the elderly innkeeper observed one evening as they watched the Zenth attempting to learn traditional folk dancing from some local residents. "But they have good hearts." "They do," Maya agreed, wincing slightly as Krell's enthusiastic turn sent a paper lantern flying. "Just very energetic ones." The trouble began when Velk discovered what locals called the Ancient Spring, a small, secluded hot spring deep in the forest that folklore claimed had been used by monks for meditation since ancient times. Despite its historical significance, the spring itself was simple, little more than a steaming pool surrounded by moss-covered stones and protected by a small weathered shrine. A group of teenagers from the nearby high school had taken Velk there after he expressed interest in the area's oldest thermal waters. Eager to impress his new friends with his extensive research, Velk attempted to measure the spring's exact depth using equipment from the Zenth ship. What exactly went wrong remained unclear even after multiple attempts at explanation. Between Velk's panicked apologies, the teenagers' fragmented accounts, and Nex's overly technical analysis, Maya pieced together that the scanning device had somehow triggered a reaction with minerals in the spring, causing a surge that damaged the natural stone formation that had channeled the water for centuries. The local teenagers shifted uncomfortably, clearly regretting their part in the incident. One girl stepped forward with a deep bow. "It was our fault too, Master Hirota. We should not have brought visitors here without permission." The old man acknowledged her with a slight nod, but returned his attention to the Zenth. "I believe it would be best if your visit concluded early. I will make arrangements for your return to the city tomorrow." The aliens' ridges drooped in unison, an expression Maya now recognized as profound shame. Without protest, they bowed deeply to Master Hirota and turned to leave, their usual boisterous energy completely absent as they trudged back toward the lodge. Maya found herself unexpectedly disappointed. Despite their chaotic influence, she had grown fond of these well-meaning aliens, and their genuine appreciation for local culture had been refreshing. More importantly, she recognized that they had made a mistake, not committed an act of malice. That evening, the Zenth isolated themselves in their rooms, declining dinner and interaction. From the hallway, Maya could hear them engaged in subdued conversation, punctuated by what sounded like ritual chanting. After a restless night, she decided to confront them directly. She found all five seated in formal meditation postures, wearing their ceremonial attire. "I understand you're leaving today," she said, sliding the door closed behind her. "We have brought dishonor to your cultural exchange program," Krell replied without opening his eyes. "We have prepared formal apologies for the diplomatic archives." "What happened was an accident," Maya said, "but hiding away isn't going to fix anything." "We have disgraced ourselves," Dorb said. "On Eldara, when one causes damage to a sacred site, they enter isolation until restoration can be performed." "And how long does that usually take?" Maya asked. Until the site is restored, Nex explained, which in this case is impossible given our imminent departure and the specialized nature of the damaged formation. Maya studied them, struck by an idea. So you're saying that on your world, you would stay and fix what you broke? Of course, Dorv replied, as if it were obvious. But we lack the necessary equipment and expertise to repair a system we do not fully understand. Perhaps, Maya suggested, instead of hiding in shame or leaving in disgrace, you could offer to repair the spring, not with your advanced technology, but with your strength and willingness to learn from those who understand it best. The Zenth exchanged uncertain glances, their ridges shifting in silent communications. You think the humans would accept our assistance after what we've done? Velk asked hesitantly. I think they might, Maya said, especially if you approach it with humility and genuine desire to make amends. Isn't that better than running away? The aliens conferred among themselves, speaking in their native language too rapidly for her translator to follow. Finally, Krell turned back to her. We would be honored to attempt restoration, he said formally. Will you help us communicate this offer appropriately? Maya nodded, feeling a small measure of hope. Let's go speak with Master Hirota together. The old innkeeper received them in his private office, listening impassively as Krell, with uncharacteristic restraint, offered the services of all 5 Zenth in repairing the damaged spring. We understand that our technology caused this harm, he explained, but perhaps our physical capabilities can assist in the restoration. We are much stronger than humans, and can move the larger stones that would otherwise require machinery. The shrine is also damaged, Master Hirota observed. Do you know anything of traditional carpentry? No, Krell admitted, but we are willing to learn if someone would teach us. A long silence followed as the elderly man considered their offer. Finally, he set down his teacup with a decisive click. My grandfather once told me that true guests leave a place better than they found it, he said. I will speak with the village elders and the local stonemason. If they agree, you may help with the restoration under proper supervision. The Zent's ridges rose in hopeful unison. However, Master Hirota continued, this will extend your stay by at least another week. Is Professor Lin able to remain as your liaison? All eyes turned to Maya. She had lectures scheduled, committee meetings to attend, but looking at the aliens' expectant faces, she found herself nodding. I can make arrangements, she said. The work began the following day under the direction of Master Tamara, an elderly stonemason with hands like gnarled roots. The Zenth set about carefully moving the displaced rocks according to old hand-drawn maps of the spring's original formation. Their strength proved invaluable as they lifted boulders that would have required heavy equipment to move, but it was their careful attention to Master Tamara's instructions that truly impressed Maya. These same aliens who had nearly demolished the lodge's dining room now worked with surprising delicacy, placing centuries-old stones with millimeter precision. Meanwhile, Master Hirota's son-in-law, a carpenter specializing in traditional shrine restoration, guided Velk and Jex in repairing the damaged shrine. Their webbed hands made fine detail work challenging, but they compensated with intense focus and willingness to repeat tasks until perfect. Local residents, initially skeptical, began stopping by to watch the restoration. Some brought food for the workers, while others offered suggestions or historical information about the spring. Children were particularly fascinated, and the Zenth took breaks to answer their endless questions about life on a frozen moon. On the 3rd day of work, as they cleared debris from the spring's main vent, Nex made a discovery. His scanner detected an unusual mineral formation deep within the underground channel that fed the spring. This is extraordinary, he exclaimed, showing his readings to Master Tamara through an interpretive hologram. There appears to be a secondary thermal vent connected to a deeper heat source. The mineral composition is remarkably similar to our sacred healing pools on Eldara. The stonemason studied the hologram with narrowed eyes. My grandfather spoke of an underground network connecting all hot springs in this valley. He believed they shared a common source deep beneath the mountain. This revelation sparked intense interest among both the Zenth and the local residents. After careful consultation with geological experts summoned from a nearby university, they modified the restoration plan to incorporate this new understanding of the spring structure. "If we adjust the stone configuration here," Nex explained, pointing to his revised design, "we can create a dual flow system that brings more of the deeper minerals to the surface while maintaining the traditional appearance and temperature of the original spring." The work took on new energy as humans and aliens collaborated, combining traditional knowledge with advanced understandings of thermodynamics. What had begun as simple restoration evolved into a careful enhancement that would preserve the spring's historical significance while improving its therapeutic properties. After days of intensive work, the restoration was complete. The ancient spring had been reborn, outwardly identical to its historical appearance, but subtly enhanced through their combined efforts. A small ceremony was organized to commemorate the reopening. The entire village gathered, along with visitors from neighboring towns who had heard about the unusual collaboration. Master Hirota, dressed in formal attire, led the proceedings. "For centuries, this spring has been a place of healing and reflection for our community," he began. "Today we celebrate not only its restoration, but its renewal through unexpected friendship." The Zenth stood awkwardly in the place of honor, their ceremonial attire now supplemented with traditional jackets gifted by the villagers. Krell had been asked to speak on their behalf. When his turn came, the alien stepped forward, his usual bombastic confidence replaced by thoughtful humility. "We came to your world seeking legendary warriors," Krell began, his voice carrying across the gathered crowd. "We expected to find strength in combat and endurance. Instead, we discovered a different kind of power, one that transforms challenge into harmony." He gestured towards the restored spring, steam rising gently into the winter air. "On our home world, heat is an enemy to be feared. Water like this would cause only pain and destruction. Yet humans, with your remarkable adaptability, have transformed what could harm you into something that heals. You did not conquer the hot spring, you befriended it." Murmurs of appreciation rippled through the crowd as Krell continued. "When we damaged this sacred place, we expected banishment or punishment. Instead, you invited us to participate in its renewal. You taught us that true strength lies not in enduring hardship, but in transforming it into benefit." The other Zenth moved forward to stand beside their companion, heads bowed in respect. "The ancient spring now carries a piece of our world within it," Nex added. "The deeper minerals we helped channel remind us of our sacred pools on Eldara. Through this coincidence of geology, two worlds separated by countless light years share a connection." As a final gesture, the Zenth performed a traditional blessing from their home world, a haunting harmonic chant that caused their ridges to vibrate in synchronized patterns, creating ripples across the surface of the spring without touching it. The crowd watched in awed silence as the alien song echoed among the snow-covered trees. When the ceremony concluded, villagers and aliens alike tested the restored spring. The elderly particularly noted the improved effects on their joints, while the Zenth demonstrated how certain minerals in the water created an iridescent sheen on their amphibious skin, a reaction they called the blessing of the ancient ice in their culture. Later than originally planned, Maya stood with the Zenth at the train platform. Their luggage had somehow multiplied, now including various gifts from villagers, samples of spring minerals carefully preserved in special containers, and several traditional crafts they had become enamored with. "I cannot believe our cultural exchange concludes today," Krell said, his booming voice having modulated to a more appropriate volume over their time together. "We have learned more about humanity in these weeks than in all our previous studies." "And I've learned quite a bit about the Zenth," Maya replied with a smile, "though my eardrums may never fully recover." Velk approached her with a small wooden box. "This contains copies of my water poetry," he explained earnestly. "I have attempted to capture the sensation of hot spring immersion for those." "I'll treasure it," Maya assured him, touched by the gesture. Nex cleared his throat, a habit he had picked up from the humans. "We have submitted a formal proposal to the Planetary Alliance and your Earth authorities," he announced. "Based on our research here, we believe this region would be ideal for an interspecies wellness center, a place where various galactic citizens could experience therapeutic traditions from multiple worlds." "You're serious?" Maya asked, surprised by their initiative. "Absolutely," Dorv confirmed. "The geological uniqueness of this area, combined with traditional local hospitality concepts and healing practices from other worlds, could create something unprecedented. And profitable," added Jex practically. "The village economy would benefit significantly." "They've asked me to serve as scientific advisor," Nex said with evident pride, "which would necessitate regular return visits to Earth." "And you would be our cultural liaison," Krell declared as if it were obvious, "if you are willing. Your patience with 5 aquatic imbeciles has been inspirational." Before she could respond, the magnetic train arrived, its sleek form gliding silently into the station. As the doors opened, Krell surprised her with a formal Zenth gesture of respect, a complex movement of hands in ridges that she recognized from their cultural briefing materials as reserved for honored teachers. "Humans may not be the strongest species in the galaxy," he said quietly, "but you might well be the most adaptable. That, Professor Maya, is your true power." As the train pulled away, carrying her unusual students back toward the city, Maya remained on the platform long after it disappeared from view. She thought about hot springs and frozen moons, about misunderstandings and discoveries, about the strange harmony that could emerge between vastly different beings when approached with openness and respect. In the distance, steam rose from the ancient spring, now informally dubbed Two Worlds by the villagers, a visible reminder that what some species perceive as danger, others transform into healing. Perhaps that, more than anything, was humanity's unique contribution to the galactic community. And somewhere on a frigid moon orbiting a distant star, future generations of Zenth would learn about the strange, resilient species that voluntarily soaked in hot water and, in doing so, taught their visitors about a different kind of strength.